Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Objective. I'm your host, Jay, and I want to thank you for tuning in here today for a brand new episode number 1. I implore you to check it out. It's entitled Objectivity and How It Relates to Conservatism. Today, we're going to be speaking on a topic that is very interesting, one that obviously would love to go past the time constraints that I do have. But we will be touching on it, and I expect it will generate a lot of questions and a lot of conversation that you can have with your friends. And I do implore each and every one of you to have friends on the other side of the spectrum. Have a wide variety of friends with varieties of thought. That's how you learn. That's how you sharpen yourself, right? Don't sharpen yourself with a dull stone. Sharpen yourself with someone who is sharp. And who can articulate themselves and why they believe what they believe. So today's topic of social justice, we hear that word a lot. Social justice. It's all over the ether. It's all over the news and social media. Social justice. We've heard the word as a social justice warrior, one that I've actually been guilty of using, not as a term of endearment, we'll say. So I decided to speak on this topic of justice versus social justice because these two words are very different. They have very different meanings. As a matter of fact, only one of those words makes sense. And that word that makes sense is justice. When you attach social to the word justice, you automatically pervert what justice truly is. Let me say it this way. When you add to a divine principle, and obviously I'm going off of the basis that justice is indeed a divine principle, you weaken it. So why do I think justice is a divine principle? I think that because justice is not something that comes natural to a human being. It's not human nature to be just. It is beyond human nature to be just. It's a standard that we set. Obviously, all of it, just the same way that we the standard that we set is objectivity. Everyone would love to say, oh, I'm objective. But no one's entirely objective. That's the standard that you set to be objective. Justice, I consider it as a divine principle. And when you add to something that is divine as a mere human being, you weaken it, you pervert it. Janusz Korwin-Mikke, I murdered that name. It's a Poland politician's name. He's a libertarian. He says, either social justice has the same meaning as justice or not. If so, why use the additional word social? We lose time, we destroy trees to obtain paper necessary to print this word. If not, if social justice means something different from justice, then something different from justice is by definition injustice. What I'm trying to establish here is that justice in and of itself inherently confronts injustice. Whether that injustice is in your community, whether that injustice is in your workplace, whether that injustice is in the legal sense of the word. Justice has no colleagues but itself. If it's not justice, it's injustice. And I understand those who empathize with the left. Well, before I even go there, I mean, the general idea that goes around is that the liberals, the left, the Democrats, they are the party for the disenfranchised. Whether that's backed up by fact or only fiction, I'll leave that up to your research. But the left has been the party of the disenfranchised, or so they say. That does not mean that those who are on the right care less. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've noticed by now, but I do consider myself to be right-winged. I'm more of a conservative, more traditional in my values. And I'll tell you right now, I have helped those who are in need. I have helped those who are disenfranchised. I have a compassionate heart for them. And what I consider that is my moral obligation as a human being. This is not a political issue that we're talking about right now. We're talking about semantics. So John Rawls said justice is the first virtue. I was going to say value. He says justice is the first virtue of social institutions, as truth is of system of thought. Very interesting quote. You can have the greatest society. You can have the greatest nation, the most powerful, but if it's unjust, it means nothing. The same way, he says, as truth is to the system of thought. You can have some of the greatest philosophical ideas, the most splendid equations and ideologies and whatever, whether you're a mathematician or a scientist, you can be at the top, the apex, the climax, the pinnacle of thought. But unless any of your ideologies are based in truth, they are for naught. Exodus 23 verse 3 says, "You shall not show partiality to a poor man in his dispute." Well, why not? Aren't we Christian? Aren't we decent human beings for those of you who aren't Christian? Leviticus 19:15 says, "You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty." So we see here that justice is not only in favor of the mighty. Justice is in favor of no one but he who is in the right. When you look at Lady Justice, and I don't know if you folks know who Lady Justice is. In case you don't know who Lady Justice is, I implore you to go to Google right now on your smartphone and search in Google Lady Justice. What you'll see is a female who in her right hand is carrying a sword, and in her left hand she's carrying a scale. But one of the most interesting parts or things about Lady Justice is that you'll notice that she's blindfolded. So the scale represents taking one's case and then weighing the opposition and the support of that case. The sword, symbolic for authority and the execution of judgment and justice. The blindfold represents and symbolizes impartiality, one of the most important things or aspects of Lady Justice to me. That's the beauty of justice, that all are deserving of justice. If you take off the blindfold, you're left with social justice. That's the inherent difference. That's the point that I'm trying to drive home today. Because social justice does care about your race. It does care about your gender. It does care about your economic status. Social justice, all those things are taken into consideration when you're looking at social justice. But you know what else takes those things into consideration? Injustice. And herein lies the intrinsic difference between social justice and justice. It's the very same thing that separates injustice from justice. And at that point, it ceased to be justice because justice is blind. So if we're going to use a word, let's use the word social fairness. I guess we can use that. A whole nother topic is the interchangeable nature of the word justice and fairness. A lot of people think that you can use them interchangeably. That's not true. It's not so. They do relate to one another, but they cannot be used interchangeably. What is fair is not always just, but what is just is always fair. I'm going to end off with a story for you guys. I'm running out of time here. I went to the market and I got some protein pancakes. The first time I've ever seen them, or first time I've ever used them. And I was blown away. I was surprised. I was happy because I absolutely love pancakes. Ask anybody, ask my sisters. They know that I love pancakes. But I tend to stay away from pancakes because, well, I guess they're not the healthiest option for breakfast. So once in a while I'd have some pancakes. But when I saw that now they have this thing called protein pancakes, more specifically Kodiak cakes, or sounds real manly. When I saw that they had this nutritional pancake mix, I said, well, I'm all in. So I bought some. And in order to get 21 grams of protein, you need to add 1 egg and you need to add 1 cup of milk. That will get you 21 grams. If you just drink it with or eat it with milk or water, you'll get like 14 to 16 grams or so. So one day I went to my fridge. I was really excited to have my protein pancakes. And as I went to grab the carton of milk and then the eggs actually slipped out of my hand and they came crashing and tumbling to the floor. And I was so upset because I knew by the sound that it made that those eggs were donezo. So I know that I only had 3 eggs left because I'm sure to eat 3 eggs a day. Yes, I do. So I measured it so that there's 3 eggs left. And so I opened the carton and I looked inside, and surely enough, 1 egg was obliterated. There was yolk everywhere. But to my surprise, there were 2 eggs that were intact. They were cracked, but they were relatively intact. So I had a decision to make, and yes, this is a first world problem. I said I could either make this mix with 1 egg and then throw out the other egg, or I can go against the rules, the ingredients, and the directions, and I can add 2 eggs to this protein pancake mix. And I decided to do that because I am a guy living by himself and I am on a budget. I'm a new homeowner and I have to be frugal, and therefore I said, well, I don't feel right just throwing this egg away. I'm going to add it to the mix. And so I added the extra egg to the mix. The mix only required 1 egg, but I added 2. And typically when I made these pancakes, they were fluffy and they were soft. They were light. But what I noticed when I added an extra egg is that it was now rough. It was tough. It was heavy. It ceased to be a pancake. I don't know what it was. When you add to something that is inherently divine, when you as a human being add to something that is divine, you tarnish it, you pervert it, you essentially destroy it. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I will see you at the next podcast. Remember, may it be your objective to be objective. Have a good night.